In the opening scene, a woman crouches alone in darkness and screams for help before she's dragged by an invisible force. That could have been more creative. The scene cuts to two American best friends, Amy and Stacy, who are on vacation in Mexico with their boyfriends, Jeff and Eric. While enjoying their day at a Cancun resort, Amy suddenly realizes that she lost an earring. The group starts searching for the earring until they are approached by a German tourist, Matthias. He returns her earring, claiming to have found it in the swimming pool. Grateful, the group invites him to join them for a drink, which he agrees to. Meet as they converse. Matthias tells them that he came here with his archaeologist brother Heinrich, who has recently gone missing since his last known location as an archaeological dig at a remote Mayan ruin in the jungle. Matthias has decided to go there tomorrow with his friend Dimitri. He then asks the couple if they would like to join them. Then they happily accept afterwards. The couples, as well as Matthias, spend their evening at the beach. During this, Amy eventually gets drunken. Wants to dance, he requests her boyfriend for the same. But Jess is already tired and retires to his hotel room. Amy, who wants to enjoy more, asks Matthias to perform a German dance with her. As the two dance, Stacy and Eric watch them, and the latter bets that Amy will soon end up kissing Matthias, just as he predicted. The drunk Amy starts getting close to the guy, but before they can make contact, Stacy intervenes and takes her friend away. The following morning, Matthias and Dimitri, along with the two couples, get ready for their journey to the ancient ruins. Upon getting off at the bus station, the group finds it difficult to find a ride to the secluded ruins, which is 18 kilometers further from there. They approach a local taxi driver and ask him to take them there. However, the guy advises them to go somewhere else, asserting that the Mayan temple is not a good place to visit. Regardless, the group insists and offers to pay double, ultimately convincing him. The driver then takes them towards their destination and eventually drops them in the middle of the forest, from which they have to hike. Amy is worried about how they will get back, but Matthias tells her that he has a satellite phone that can grab a signal from anyone to call a taxi. After this, the group uses a hand map to make their way deeper into the jungle. They soon come across Heinrich's abandoned jeep, confirming that they are on the right path. After walking a while, they finally come across their destination, a clearing and high, ancient ruin located in the middle of the jungle. But before they can climb up, they are confronted by some Mayan villagers, armed with knives, bows, arrows, and even a gun. Matthias tries to assure them that they possess no threat, also explaining the purpose of their visit. However, the villagers don't understand Spanish or English. In the meantime, Amy stands in the back and takes pictures with her camera, disregarding the seriousness of the situation. During this, she accidentally steps on some vines, causing the villagers to become extremely agitated, thinking that they are angry because of the photograph. Dimitri tries to hand over the camera as a sign of apology, but to everyone's shock, he is shot in the chest with an arrow before an old Mayan leader guns him down to death. This is one extremely elaborate escape room. This horrifies the group, and they flee up the steps of the ruins. Strangely enough, the villagers did not chase them, but instead wait for them at the bottom. Once reaching the top, the group discovers an abandoned and a well-like shaft in the center. Matthias looks around the place and comes across a horrific sight: the dead body of his brother. Everybody freaks out upon seeing this, and Amy asks Matthias to call for help. However, his satellite phone was seized by the villagers during the earlier confrontation. Now that they are stuck, Jeff suggests that they wait here until someone comes to their rescue. He believes that their hotel staff will call the police if they don't return for their checkout the next day. Unless, of course, the hotel sent them here to be a ritual sacrifice. Just then, they hear a phone ringing from somewhere inside the ruins. Recognizing that it's his brother's ringtone, Matthias decides to go down to Shag. He grabs a lantern, loops a rope around him, and Jeff and Eric lower him slowly down the shaft by an overhead crank. Unfortunately, the rope turns out to be very weak, It snaps, causing Matthias to plunge to the bottom. Worried, the remaining group members decide that one of them must go down to help, while the boys repair the rope. Stacy volunteers to go. They then tie the rope around her and slowly lower her down. However, the rope isn't long enough to take her all the way down. As a result, she unhooks herself and jumps to the dirt floor. To her bad luck, she lands on a broken lantern, causing its glass shard to penetrate her knee. Despite the excruciating pain, she pulls out the shard and covers the wound with a piece of cloth. She then looks around and finds Matthias lying down, paralyzed, realizing that she can't lift him alone. She tells the remaining group members to think of another way. Amy suggests that they seek help from the Mayan villagers, who are waiting at the bottom. Jeff asserts that it's dangerous, but the desperate Amy decides to give it a try. As she heads down, Jeff follows her. Seeing them, the Mayans immediately hold them at gunpoint, ordering them to go back up. The couple tries to explain their predicament, but the villagers refuse to help them. In a fit of rage, Amy throws a clump of vines which hits a young boy, as strangely worries the villagers as they turn towards the boy, acting as if he is now become untouchable. The latter tries to explain that he's innocent, but the villagers don't listen and mercilessly shoot him to death. Terrified, Jeff and Amy retreat back to their friends. The incident makes them realize that the Mayans are afraid of the Whis and that they aren't letting them leave because they have all touched them. The group then comes up with another idea. They create a makeshift stretcher to lift Matthias up. Amy descends into the shaft to help Stacy. In loading Matthias onto the stretcher, the two girls somehow manage to load Matthias before the boys hoist him up. Eventually, they all make it back to the surface. Jeff, being a pre-med student, checks Matthias and determines his condition to be critical. Thanks, Jeff. Later on, while rummaging through Dimitri's belongings, Jeff discovers his flight tickets scheduled for the next morning. He then tells the group members that Dimitri's friends will soon notice his absence, after which they'll come looking for. Amy wonders how they'll know their whereabouts, to which Jeff responds that Dimitri's friends have a copy of the map to their location. With this hope, the group goes to sleep in the tent. Unfortunately, strange things start to happen. The same night, when Stacy wakes up the following morning, she is terrified to see a tendril of vine is crept into the wound on her leg. They immediately call for Jeff to have a look, while Amy goes to check on the sweating Matthias. Few seconds later, she starts screaming at the top of her lungs. When the remaining members rush out, they come across a grim sight. The vines have wrapped themselves around Matthias's lower legs and eaten them under the bone. Jeff tries to remove the vines, but to no avail as there are too many. Not long after, the phone ring is heard again from deep in the shaft. Now that they are even more desperate to escape, Stacy and Amy decide to venture down once again in search of the phone, the one that they should have grabbed the first time. Armed with handmade torches, the two girls begin their mission. They make their way through a narrow path and arrive in a small room-like structure, fully covered with vines. As they look around, they are startled by the corpse of a young archaeologist. They find a broken phone in his hand, but it's not the one that's ringing. Maybe it works to not worth checking. A few moments later, Amy's attention is grabbed by one of the red flowers amidst the vines. As she gets closer to it, she uncovers a shocking revelation. It's the plants that are recreating the ringtones, sounds by vibrating their stamens. What? Amy proceeds to touch the flower out of curiosity. Don't do that. But the vines suddenly turn hostile and attack them. In a state of panic, the girls dash out of the room and manage to get out of the shaft, narrowly evading the vine. Clutches back to the surface. Amy confides everything she saw inside. She urges the group to leave right away, as she believes they're being quarantined from whatever evil lurks in the ruins. However, Jeff reminds her of the armed villagers and suggests that they wait for help. Why don't they just throw vines at all the villagers? But while waiting, Matthias's condition continues to worsen. After one more inspection, Jeff announces tragic news. They must amputate Matthias's legs because the infection is spreading very quickly. Everyone is against the idea at first, but Jeff claims that Matthias won't survive much longer. At this pace, in the midst of their argument, Matthias calls them out in a weak voice, telling them that Neki rang and they said to just do it. After this, the girls are sent inside the tent, while Jeff and Eric carry out the brutal task. Firstly, use a stone to break the bones, and then cut it off with a pocket knife. Following this, they cauterize the wounds with a heating pan, eventually stopping the bleeding. Stacy and Amy clutch each other, holding their ears trying to block out the screams. Once done, they come out, only to witness the vines taking the remaining flesh away. The mines are clearly carnivorous and are waiting for them all to die. As night falls, the two girls go to sleep in the tent, while the guys keep an eye on the villagers. Unable to sleep, Amy comes out to sit next to Eric. As they converse, she starts tearing up at their ongoing predicament, so Eric offers her a consoling hug. At the same time, Stacy wakes up to the sound of apparent mods. Thinking that Eric and Amy are sleeping together, she storms out of the tent and accuses them of infidelity. Jeff, who is checking on the villagers at the bottom, hears the commotion and heads upwards. As he tries to intervene, Daisy lashes out, claiming that Amy would have slept with Matthias if he hadn't stopped her earlier. While the four argue, the vines choke the paralyzed Matthias, resulting in his demise the next morning. Jeff and Amy sit at the top of the steps, watching the sunrise. They seem to have resolved last night's conflict. Just then, Eric summons them into the tent, where Amy shows them the vines crawling underneath her, in like snakes. Sensing the urgency of the situation, Jeff uses his pocket knife to remove the vine from her leg and spine and then bandages her the best that he can. But even after this, Stacy still feels there's more inside of her and wants to take it out. The others forbid her, saying it's just her imagination. However, their assumption proves to be wrong, as they notice a flash of another moving vine in her forehead. Despite this, they hide it from Stacy and suggest that they all rest for some time. While the group members fall asleep, Stacy walks out of the tent and starts cutting herself in an attempt to remove the vines. Shortly after, the others walk out to find a hysterical Stacy covered in open wounds. Eric tries to calm her down, but she flails the knife and accidentally stabs him in the chest, resulting in his death. While the remaining members try to restrain her, Eric is dragged away by the vines. Stacy, who is now overwhelmed with pain and remorse, begs them to kill her. Jeff reluctantly obliges, and he puts her out of her misery. In the aftermath, Jeff devises a plan for his girlfriend to escape. He explains that he'll create a diversion at the bottom, which will buy her some time. Following this, he smears Stacy's blood all over her and carries her to the bottom. He lays her on the ground, pretending that she's dead. He then provokes and berates the Mayans, drawing their attention away from Amy. As he continues this tirade, Amy gets up and runs towards Heinrich's abandoned jeep, but the Mayans chase after her. Meanwhile, Jeff is shot with several arrows. Before the old leader finishes him off with a bullet, Amy runs as fast as she can, dodging several arrows in the process. She somehow reaches the jeep and manages to drive away just before the Mayans get to her. But as she creeps away, she suddenly feels a vine creeping within her face. In the final scene, Dimitri's two Greek friends are seen walking through the woods and come up to the temple, looking for him. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.